Hi everyone, welcome back to our Maine homestead. Today I want to show you how I built a hops trellis system and give you a tour of one of my smaller hops gardens that grow on these trellises right here. It's springtime and of course the hops are going crazy. You can see here that they've got some pretty good bines already started, so it's time to string them up. So I'll show you that system, but first I'll show you the trellises that I built. So here's a view of the two trellises. They're about 18 feet high. I did use pressure treated 4x4s that go into the ground, and then I just cut and made the T-sections and braced them up at the top. You'll be surprised, this looks pretty sturdy, and it is. I haven't had any problems with it. You can see here where I've braced it against this storage shed, so I've run a 2x4 out and then braced it into each of the posts for the trellis just to give it a little more support. But you'd be surprised once you grow a line of hops and they're supported by this, how much weight that is, but also how much of a sail they are. They will catch the wind. So you want to build something like this as sturdy as possible. The wind blows through here, you know, pretty consistently, but we have storms, wind storms. They're not really storms, I guess, but where the wind picks up and blows 40-50 mile an hour through here. So obviously they have to be pretty sturdy. So far so good. These have been up about 3 years and they're holding steady. So basically you can see 4x4s into the ground about a couple of feet. That's as deep as I can go almost anywhere. Goes up about 18 feet, a T at the top, and then the two angle braces coming back to the main post just to kind of sturdy everything up. Did that on both sides, and now I'll show you the cable system. So this whole system is designed to make harvesting easy. Since I don't have an easy way or a good way to harvest up 18 feet high in the air, I kind of came up with this system based on just reading about hops and seeing how the commercial growers did it, number one, but also kind of trying to figure out a solution that was inexpensive, easy, and something I could actually build myself. So all I have down here is I have a screw hook that goes into the post. That's where the ends of each of the cables connect. This is just 1/4 inch aircraft cable. I bought it at Harbor Freight, I think, and it was very inexpensive. Like 50-foot roll, I'm gonna say was $10 or $12, might have been 15, I don't know, but not very expensive at all. And I used 2 rolls, so you can see not much in it. Probably as much in the hardware as anything. But then all I did is I bring the cable around, looped it, and put it in whatever this little gadget here is called. That's just a to make it so you can tighten it. So I call it a tightener. So once you get it hooked on this hook, of course, when you wire the cable and pull it as tight as you can by hand, you're looping it through with this, then keeping it tight, connecting these connectors here, and then you've got it fully expanded, obviously. So in the opposite position it is in now, all the way open. And so once you get it connected and hooked in here, then you can, well, you don't have it hooked, but then you can tighten up. You can screw these in, and that will shorten the distance between here and the hook, tightening up your cable. These cables don't have to be very tight, so I did not try to make it that tight at all. But there's one of these on each end for each line, and there's 2 lines. I'll show you that. But and then there's a solid, just a hook on the other end. So this one goes up, all the way up, through an eye bolt that's screwed into the outside of that T, and there's one. So there's one here and one there that the cables run through. They run all the way to the other end and down through the eye bolts at the top, and then down, and this exact same hookup on the other side. So what I was saying is there's one of these here on this cable. If you follow this cable up and follow this cable all the way to the other side, it has one of these on the other end, because you only need a tightener on one side, unless you're trying to get it really tight, which you don't need it really tight. So And then these stay hooked on here. Sometimes I will tie a rope in here just to be sure if the wind really starts kicking, especially once plants are up on it, that it'll keep it from popping off. It would be really hard for it to pop all the way and come off. It's pretty tight on there, but just in case, sometimes I'll just tie a little small piece of rope that keeps that from sliding off. So whether you're doing this in the spring like now, or you're doing it to harvest in the fall, you're going to do basically the same procedure. Right now, I'm going to tie this rope onto the end of one of my connectors. That way I can lower the cable that's going up through the eye screw, eye bolt, and I can lower that stretch that's at the top down, and then I can connect my ropes that I put on to allow the bines to climb up every spring. So all I've done is slip this off of the eye hook that's screwed into my post here. I'm going to just loosely tie this on, but tight enough hopefully that I don't lose it, because I don't want to go climbing to get it. Should be enough. Sometimes it's hard to get it started with this because I don't have a way to pull it down from the top. But you see the idea. This rope is tied here to allow me to hold on to the end so that I don't lose this piece that I'm going to need to pull back down. So once I get all my lines connected to the top wire at the top, then I'm going to pull this rope back down and untie it from here, hook it back on, and that side's done. Had to get the old handy rake out, obviously. So this is a spool of twine made from coconut husk, I guess. I'm not sure the technical name for it, but that's what a lot of people use to allow their hops bines to climb. I bought this like 4 years ago. I reuse this if I can. So it's the reason, one of the reasons you use a natural type of twine is when you harvest, you're harvesting the flowers, and then all the rest of the plant, the bines and the leaves and all of that, can go straight into your compost, and this is compostable. So that makes it real easy. But instead of spending to buy this every year, well, you can see I've only used a fraction of it, and I've used it just one time actually, but I'm putting up new this year because the other was starting to fall apart. But the point is, you can unwind, pull off the bines, most of them over the winter. They'll die off more, so when you get ready to put them back up, they will basically be like this, a little darker just from the weather. But again, I used them for I used the same ones for 3 years, so it's very durable, but it's starting to fall apart now, probably just because of the sun degradation. But anyway, so I don't know if you can see this. It's hard to see, it's really bright out here, but this is the bend in the wire, so I'll make it a little more evident so I don't lose where it is. That's where this wire sits on the edge of the eye bolt that's up on one end of the T trellis. So the eye bolt sits out here, and eye bolt sits out here for the other line, and this is where the bend is. So I know if I stay on this side of the bend, I can run hops, I can run these lines all the way up to this point, and then just try to evenly tie them across. So technically, you would probably allow one bine to climb this, but I have been doing 2 with very good results, no problems at all. I think the main reason you don't want too many bines climbing one line is you want to be sure you get good air circulation. Well, the way mine have been doing, haven't had any problems with diseases or that kind of thing. I do have a bug that tries to eat mine every year. It did not the first year, but it has tried ever since, and I've been I put diatomaceous earth on them. once every couple of weeks unless it rains, and then I just reapply it, and that has done a really good job at allowing it to keep enough foliage so that it ends up flowering and producing you know, a lot of hops. But anyway, all I do is simply just take this, and this stuff is has a lot of friction to it, so it's not going to come off of there. But I usually just get it as tight as I can, because I don't want it sliding on this any more than it has to, because I try to keep them so that you keep that distance between these lines so that you can allow for air circulation between lines. Obviously, I'll probably have 2 plants growing on this, but I may have them spaced every 8 to 12 inches or so. So all I'm going to do is kind of keep that from moving. It'll still move. It'll loosen up possibly, especially after it rains. But anyway, that's all I'm doing. So that one will end up being right next to that eye bolt at the top of the trellis, and it'll come down, and I will train one of the bines from this far plant on this end to climb it. That's all there is to it. So now I just have about 20 more of these to do. And so here I have hooked the cable back onto my hook, screw hook that's into my 4x4. Still got my rope attached, but I just pulled it back down to check the position. So this line runs all the way up through the eye bolt. That's where I tied my first line on, and then it's dropping straight back down to where I have tied it off, to my lower line, my anchor line. So I'll explain that to you now. So this is pretty simple. All I've done is drive stakes in at the end of each of my line of hops. So I have 6 groups of hops going along between this stake and the one down at the end down there, and then I've just taken a smaller gauge wire, not the coconut, not wire, but twine, and connected it between the tops of each stake so that I've got a fairly taut line going along the bottom. And what that does is anchor the line that's coming from my top cable, comes down, and then it is tied to that line that goes across the bottom along the tops of the hops plants. So when I start training my hops plants to grow up here, which by the way, training them is very easy. All you do is just wind them clockwise. They will naturally grow clockwise, but you want to be sure you go clockwise around this line here. But anyway, once they get tall enough, I will start doing that. Couple of things. Number one, you do not want this line, at least for me, I don't want it tight. I don't want it so that it's pulling this line up. I want it relatively loose. You're just giving the hops plant something to climb, so it doesn't have to be a really taut line. The other thing is, because of wind and just stress on this and this, you don't want to try to start. You can see I'm pulling this one as far as it'll go. I'm not pulling very hard, but it's barely to that line. That's the growing tip right there. So it's not ready to train onto this yet. I may not train any of them today. It just depends. All I'm doing right now is getting all my lines in. So I will bring 3 of these lines like this. So one here, one about 8 to 12 inches apart from it, and then another one on the other side of it. And I will have 3 lines per plant. So depending on the plant, I may have 6 bines per plant climbing. And if you read kind of what people recommend, a lot of times they'll say 3 or 4 per plant. But like I said, I've had good success with this method. I don't know what my yield is compared to doing it a different way, obviously, but I'm happy with it and it's working for me. So that's what I'm going to kind of stick with. So now I'm going to do, this is 1, I'm going to do 2 more here, and then 3 for each of the groups of plants that I have down this line. And then I'll do the same thing for this line over here. There's my anchor post and anchor line. We'll bring the lines down from the top down and tie them to the anchor line. And then once I get all of that done, I'll be ready to look at, is it time to start training individual bines to connect to their lines. So I've gotten 3 sets of 3 tied onto my top cable, and you probably can't see it, but to keep it from sliding, I had forgotten that I had this idea a while ago, but I put some duct tape on it on either side of where I tied the line. That just keeps it from sliding laterally. While I was doing this, I had another great idea. If I had some colored duct tape, or any kind of tape really that'll withstand the weather, which I don't have any colored duct tape, but if I had some colored duct tape, I could put it in the areas where I want it, and then that would be my guide for tying it back up the next time that I replace these lines. But anyway, I have 3 done. I went ahead and tied the first 3 over here just to be sure that everything was the right length. And then I just measured as I tied. This one was tied and measured to the one before, or measured originally. Then I pulled this one and I just went down the line and then cut it, you know, a little bit extra, so I'll be sure to have enough to tie it. So that's 3. I've got 3 more for this line. So what I'll do now is pull this line, pull the rope down, raise this back up, hook the hook onto my hook that's screwed into my post, and then I can tie these down where they go along my anchor line down at the bottom. And then I can lower this side, pull it off the hook, and lower it down through the eye bolt that's at the top, and do the same thing on this side, and then repeat for this front wire that's opposite this one. That's it. Hopefully maybe for another 3 years. Like I said, this is only the 2nd time I've had to restring the ropes that the bines climb. As you can see, some of them are already long enough to start climbing. They naturally will they'll climb all the way to the top, and once they reach the top, they'll start going horizontally along that cable up there. Yeah, we'll see how good they do this year. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment in the comment section, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you soon.